Industrial Development Agency. Pledge of allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, can I have a roll call of the members? Hello, Counselor.
James Malcolm,
Here.
Diane Einen,
Here.
Michael Ham is absent with notice. Faye Storms. She was there. She's muted and the video's off, but says she's here. Orlando Reese
Present.
and Daniel Savona said he was running a couple minutes late. He was having trouble getting on Wi-Fi. And Rick Jones.
Here.
Okay. The mission of the Ulster County Industrial Development Agency is to advance the job opportunities, general prosperity, and long-term economic vitality of Ulster County residents by targeting tax incentives, bonding, and other assistance to foster creation and attraction of new business and the retention and expansion of existing business. Good morning, Mr. DeMarco. How are you? All right, you're muted. That's okay. I'd like everybody to take an opportunity, the board members, to take a look at the meeting minutes from September 15th, 2021. After reviewing, please give me a motion whether to accept as presented or any pertinent changes.
I make a motion to accept the minutes.
Thank you, Dr. D. I have a motion to accept the minutes as presented. Do I have a second?
A second.
Second.
I do. Orlando Reese. Anything on the question? No? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? None? That would mean they're carried. Okay, that brings us to public comments on agenda items only. Anyone out there? Okay, we don't have any. So what did we say? Do we have anything under executive session in the IDA, Rose?
No, Joe, unless you have some, okay. So no, we don't have anything, Jimmy.
Okay. Who's got the financials for me? For us?
That'll be me today.
Okay.
So the only revenue that came in for the month of September was project admin fees, the pass-through for what gets paid to Loki Brill. And then we had our expenses out. The remainder of the audit was paid for after clearing up the misunderstanding with UHY and having a better action plan going forward, as the board had asked about overage on next year's audit and in the future years. They agreed, just as a reminder, we wanted them to change the engagement letter to say that they would let us know about any overage, and they've agreed to do that. And we had talked about ways that we could both make it work smoother and go faster. And then Scott has already reached out to me this morning to start planning for next year's audit, which is kind of hard to believe. And then other than that, it was just postage and a $25 fee in here that I'll have to, I think was an extra amount due for, it was an extra amount due for insurance.
Okay, all right. So everything's in order as far as the financials?
Yep, everything looks good. And then on the balance sheet, we had a small amount in accounts receivable. Some of it, I think the audit committee had discussed recommending that we potentially write off the amount due from Amthor, but I'm not sure if we want to do that now, but I think it makes sense to wait a couple more months until the year is wrapping up.
Being in that industry, what's the upside or what's the pratfalls of doing that at a certain time?
Yeah, the problem is it's a couple $1,000 that's due from them, including $1,000 of it would have been a late fee for not reporting, which they've still not done for 2020. They've gone ahead and started the process of refinancing so that they're no longer going to be a project after 2021 because they don't report back to us and they don't want to pay the fees. We had talked to council about what we could do to recover the fees, but unfortunately, it would be cost prohibitive for us to try to go after the couple
That's fine.
$1,000.
That's fine. No, you shouldn't spend five to get one, but that's why it's so important to continue to send notice all through the process. And I think that's something that this board has done and especially the CEO has done a great job and undertaking. I mean, you got to continue to document in case you're called out about it. So good job there, Rose. And we'll deal with each one of these things individually. I don't think we should ever be working at a cost deficiency, a deficit, but every story is a different story. So if nothing else, can I get a motion to accept the financials, please?
So
I'll
moved.
make a motion to accept.
I have a motion. I have a second by Orlando. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carried. Brings us to the chair's report. Same thing as every month, but I do get, I ran into some people. I was at a function in New York City and, spoke up Ulster County and not to get into specifics, people that are, again, moving north to escape a little bit of, create sprawl, I guess. I was speaking with a fella in real estate and other things and actually some business people down there. But, again, it's one of those, you give them your name, you give them your info, they'll give you a call. I'm sure we have people reaching out to our CEO on a semi-regular basis, speaking about potential projects. And, I think we're better off waiting until we have some sort of commitment or some definite moving forward before we get into them. But that's it as far as from my report, except for, dealing with the typical stuff that goes on, concerns, complaints, whatever. That's it. So I don't know if I can ask for a motion on that because I didn't give you anything really, but I'll move forward to the CEO's report.
Thanks, Jimmy.
Yep.
So I know that I had told several of you, but at this point, I can't keep track of who I had told or not told. So I just wanted to let you know that I am away this week and I will be back next week on Monday, just in time for the board training day. And then I'll be back, be back in the office again on Thursday because of course I have a field trip on Wednesday.
Let's go Gate Farm.
Yeah, I wish. So, but for this week, I do have some access to email and I am trying to keep up on everything. And we do have someone in the office, although most of us are away because Chris is getting, our boss here is getting married we're in Paris. So he's getting married on Saturday. So most of us are gone, but we do have somebody in the office answering phones and dealing with issues that have come up already.
Dr. D, you have a question? I see your hand raised there.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Rose, you had mentioned the training, so just wondering if the agenda's been finalized for the training.
No, it hasn't. So I'm still working on it here. It's a matter of dealing with the other speakers. So I did just get some more some more materials today from people, even though I had asked for them for last week. And so I'm just dealing with it while I'm here because that's the best I can do. I don't anticipate that it'll be 100% until probably the end of this week.
Yeah, unfortunately,
Thank you.
Unfortunately, Senator Skoufis won't be able to attend.
Jimmy, he did tell me they changed it and they said that they think he will be able to attend via Zoom. So that's not
Oh, there
100%.
you go. Well, good for Jim Scoofus. That's important because
Mhm.
he's a guy who's got, he's laser focused on IDAs around the state. And it's always good to have that perspective. And I believe that we're not going to be able to have somebody from the comptroller's office down.
Right, that's correct.
Can we just ask them if they can pop in on Zoom maybe, whether it's Elliot or someone
Yeah.
else, just the last ditch effort? Because, I mean, they
I
are
asked.
kind of the governing body.
Yes, I understand. I asked. Luckily, some of what we wanted them to cover specifically, we do have two other people that are sort of touching on that
Great.
topic. So
Great.
hopefully that works out. And I think that Joe Scott knows that he's going to probably be in the hot seat to step in for one of the time slots, but we discussed that and he's being flexible, obviously.
Okay, great. So listen, it's going to be productive. Rick, question?
Rose, are we doing this remote or are we going to, where are we doing it?
So it was, it's planned to be on the 6th floor. It's in the county legislature chambers.
Everybody
Unless,
bring your
unless
mask.
something crazy changes.
I just too want to say, to Jim's point, if somebody from the comptroller's office can be there, that would be great. Especially since March had some very specific recommendations for us.
So March will be attending
Okay,
in person, but Jimmy and I were talking about the New York State Comptroller because we had reached out to the Division of School and Local Government Accountability, and unfortunately, they had some things come up that they won't be able to attend.
I think anyone and everyone who has some equity in Ulster County will probably be there and weighing in on something. So,
Should be fun.
yeah, it's like when you tape something on TV and they say, do you want to add a 30-minute overrun? You click it. So it'll be good. It'll be productive. It'll be perspectives, and that's good for us as a group. So how are we? Are you good now with your report, Rose? Is that it?
No, there's not
Okay.
too much, but so the next thing was Afaria Inc. I see that Kathy is on here as well as her attorney, but I had talked to Joe Scott about this, so I wanted to just give an overview of some of the changes that Kathy was looking to have happen with her project.
Is this the place to do that?
Yep. And then
Okay.
I had spoken to Joe about it and he had no issues with it, but I'll let him speak to that after I give you an overview here about it. So Afaria was looking to add some storage units. And to be clear, we're talking about like the units inside of a building, because at first, for some reason, when I was reading her proposal, I was imagining pods. So she's got a 9,000 square foot warehouse with a 3,500 square foot office. There's a mezzanine that would be sort of wasted space. And she was thinking that she would want to add 74 units to for storage to help bring in a little bit more revenue for paying for the project. I had talked to Joe about it because this would then make this portion of the project retail because it's for services that somebody's getting on site. It would be less than 30%, or less than 33% of the total project cost. So it wouldn't change anything as far as allowing retail, not allowing retail, having to have a county executive sign off, etc. And Joe had spoken with her attorney and they had determined, I think, that it wasn't really going to change much of the project or the nature. So I think Joe saw no legal issues with it. But Joe, I want you to speak to that. I don't want to put words in your mouth.
Thanks, Rose. The issue that's raised here is that there's been a change in what is actually going to be delivered at the end of the project construction period. And that change is the installation of these self-storage pods that will be located within the building footprint. It's a minor amount. It doesn't trigger any of the retail prohibitions. So in my view, it didn't, I mean, we have general language in our documents about commercial, commercial undertaking. This certainly fits within the commercial undertaking. So from a legal standpoint, I didn't see an issue, but in discussing it with Rose, we thought it would be wise and prudent to review it at least on an informal basis with the board to make sure that there wasn't any hot button items that we might be overlooking. And we also thought it would be appropriate and prudent to have their counsel and the project applicant available to answer any follow-up questions if there were any questions from the board members. So with that,
Okay,
I'll
so
pass it
just
back to
what
you.
we're talking about here is the shell is the same, the square footage is all the same. It's what they're doing with it within the inside, and what they're doing with it is not prohibitive. It doesn't trigger any other action.
Correct.
In
And
a
it's not
nutshell.
changing anything she already had happening.
Yeah, no, I mean,
Question
with the
to-
small addition of, pardon me, let me finish my thought. With the small addition of the minor amount of retail, so it just doesn't, it doesn't do any, it doesn't change anything, right? So that's basically what we're talking about. Okay. Rick, you had a
Rose?
question?
Yes, are those storage units taxable as in sales tax for the monthly fees? Is that a taxable item,
We assume so with retail.
right?
If
I-
the
I
retail, I would
believe
assume
it
they
is.
would be.
Yeah,
they
I
won't-
believe it is.
They
So it'd
won't
be
be exempt
another
under,
No, they won't be. Counselor, Joe, please.
yeah, those monthly charges, Dan, are not exempt. So I go and sign a rental agreement with Kathy to put stuff in those facilities. I pay sales tax. What's
Okay.
not subject to sales tax is her acquiring those facilities to drop them into the building.
Right.
My question was, will it be generating sales tax for the county by using those, which in her case, I think is a big plus considering some of the other rental units and the staging was out of the county, which I think we struggled with a little bit. So, I think it's a good move for us. We're going to generate sales tax.
Yeah, that's a good point, Danny.
Is there gonna be any extra employees involved in that, maintenance or overseeing it or renting it out or anything adding to that number?
Not that I'm aware of, but I asked Kathy to unmute her. There she goes.
The initial kind of outline included an additional person, and there will likely be a need for what you just mentioned, maintenance, that type of thing, admin. This really does trigger a need for like a full-time admin that will be able to facilitate that.
What's another win? It's a full-time. Rick, you had a point?
Yeah, I
You're
just
muted.
wanted to confirm, there's not going to be any diminution in the original purpose of the project.
We just covered that.
Okay, I missed it.
No, it's just wasted space, for lack of a
Okay.
better, yeah. Diane?
Anyone else?
Just also, yeah, given retail, I'm assuming there's enough space and accommodation for parking for people who are coming to the facility if you're increasing a number of people to the site.
Kathy? You're muted.
All right, yeah, this is bit site planned. We actually received a thumbs up from David Barton, who is the building department head for the town of Lloyd, relating to this project and this inclusion.
So that means there'll be adequate parking given the configuration of the site right now and what you have. Okay, thanks, Kathy.
It was one of the questions that he asked.
Okay, thank you.
So Joe had, I had asked
Leon,
Joe.
anything from you that you'd like to add?
No, thank you. I was just responding to the question about parking, but I think Kathy took it.
You're in the middle of my screen, so I'm laser focused on you. Go ahead, Rose.
So I was just gonna say, I did ask Joe if this required a resolution from us or anything else. And it does not, because it's such a minimal change. But like he said, we just wanted to keep you all up to date and make sure that there were no issues.
Great.
Um,
We good on that? Okay.
Okay, so then the last piece here, I know we've talked about there, we have $15,000 in our budget for advertising and marketing. Some of it's used for, you know, for our email, for our website, and not too much else so far this year. Danny Savona actually sent me a video that another IDA was using. And I think it's great. And I know I've shared it with several of you who thought it was great as well. I'd like to share my screen and show it. Don't worry, it's 2 minutes.
It's only my
long.
idea, but it's a good one.
Yeah, yeah. It's only 2 minutes long, so it won't, you know, waste a ton of time. But so Dutchess County had this sort of yes, Eon, sorry. I just saw your question. So, sorry, Dutchess County had this sort of quick animation that explained pilots and explained what it is we do without causing confusion and without making it too convoluted. So I had reached out to the marketing agency that did it, and it's Quick Frame, which is a large company that works with businesses all over the country. And although they're headquartered in Florida, we had a person here in New York State that I spoke to. And then what they do is they reach out to basically contractors who would do the actual work. So it's almost like they're the broker for this kind of thing. They were able to get 3 different quotes from me. It's I don't know what else to say. I mean, it's expensive, but I think it's worth it. The 3 different quotes were $5,250, $5,500, and $8,000. So like I said, it's expensive, but I think, you know, we have the money in the budget, and I think this is exactly what everybody has been asking for us to do for the last year or so. And I think this is a good start, if nothing else. So I'm going to share my
The video.
screen. Yeah, hold on. Here you go.
Is there volume with it, Rose?
Can you not hear it?
No.
There is. There's a voiceover. Let me see if there's anything else.
Rose, can you send us a link?
Yes, I'll
watch
send
it
it to
again.
you all. But it does have it it does say what's going on. So I just want to play it because for this amount of money, we have to have board approval. So I don't know if you want to watch it, or if Jimmy, you prefer that they not watch now, watch it later, or what you want to do.
Well, whatever. Watch it now. You send them the link. They can go over it again. It just whatever everybody else wants to do. If it's something that's going to help, it's a good thing. But this Alliance for Business is a separate and independent group as well, right? Yeah, we don't have that here, do we?
So I'm bummed that the audio didn't work, because there's some music in it, there's a voiceover, and there's a little bit more explained with speaking rather than just what you were seeing. But I will definitely send you all the clip. That one was 2 minutes and 18 seconds. What I had talked to QuickFrame about was that I think it's actually a little bit long to hold people's attention, because we really want them to watch the entire thing. So we were looking to cutting it to about 90 seconds. The deliverables would be, hold on. Sorry, I have to go back to my other screen here. The deliverables would be one 90-second animated explainer, optimized for YouTube at 16 by 9 inches, and then also for Facebook at 4 by 5. There would be assistance with script authoring, a custom full screen animation. For post-production, there would be a professional voiceover, custom music, animated logo with dynamic call to action.
Okay, well, listen, it certainly is a good idea. And the first thing I would do is I would send it to the legislature. I would send it to all the town boards. I mean, you know, we've undertaken a process of letting people know and clearing up misinformation about what pilots actually are. And still to this day, people that you would think should be in the know, it's a little cloudy for them. I'm not going to be insulting to anybody, but it's a little cloudy to them. It's one of those deals where, you know, you hear what you want to hear and you see what you want to see. And what that video does right there is it takes it down to pretty much the base of what a pilot is, and answers the questions you need. So we could just inundate the market with that. Dr. D?
Yeah, I think it's a great idea. And I'm wondering, Rose, how much did that video cost? I'm sorry.
Well, Duchess's video cost a little over $6,000.
Okay.
So I had asked them to cut it a little bit. So it would be about
Okay.
$5,250 was the lowest.
Okay. So, you know, to me, there's the one piece explains what a pilot is, but I'm also wondering if we would do a second video, because we have resources and I think it's important. If we did a second video that actually specifically talks about direct benefits to the people of Ulster County, right? So make it a little bit more, I don't want to say personal, but more that people can relate specifically how it helps them as a resident in Ulster County. So we did the 2-prong approach. I think that might be good and keep them both short.
Yeah, I
Would you
definitely
like to start with the first one, then work on the second one, or put them out simultaneous? Faye, this was a big thing for you. What
Right.
are you
That's what
weighing on?
I was thinking. I love what Diane says, but I'd like to add to it by highlighting projects, specific projects that have happened in our area, so people can have hands-on
Something to relate to.
relate
But
to them.
together, or the first one and then the second one? Do you want to
The
stage
first
them?
one being the animated one, the
Yeah.
second one being the content, you know, what we do Ulster County.
I spoke with QuickFrame about doing exactly what you guys are saying, by the way, because I know we had talked about this in the past. And he was, you know, they were coming up with some, I thought, really great ideas, even some filler stuff with drone footage of Ulster County. It's such a beautiful area, and focusing a little bit on projects, but again, keeping it very short and sweet so that people don't lose their attention.
And they will.
Not
So
to lose sight, or Orlando's got a question.
Yeah,
I just want to be sure. Now, this is the question I asked. Do you want to put them out together, or put out the first one and then have a follow-up?
as somebody in the
Orlando,
media,
I'm just trying to get an idea here, and then I'll turn it right over to you. So Faye, you spoke on it. Diane, Danny, are we looking to put out one and then 3 months down the line put another one out, or do you want to put them out together, or just not a big debate? Just tell me what you think.
Yeah, I just think that I'm sorry, go ahead, Orlando.
Yeah,
no, please,
I'd like to
please
hear from
finish.
Orlando.
No, I was just gonna say.
No, I just wanted to clear up how long you wanted in between them. That's all.
But I think Orlando might have an answer
Yeah.
to that.
Yeah, I was trying to say,
Well,
like,
I'm asking you what you want, and Orlando can weigh in on what he wants as
Okay,
well.
I'll just-
So do you want to send them out together, or do you want to do one at a time?
I would say we produce both of them and then we think strategically, we put the one out and then the timing of the
Awesome.
session when it's ready
Good
to
stuff.
go.
Orlando, sorry about that.
no. I was just gonna say, look, I think you get one shot with most people. The problem is people aren't gonna keep coming back. I think what we need to try to do is do something short and sweet that is combined, because most people aren't gonna say, oh, I've saw one pilot, I'm gonna go to something else. It's just typical people's media habits. So
Okay.
if it's possible to create something that's one and all together, it would be stronger and more compelling than doing one and then another. if
Well, this
possible.
is your purview, right? This
Yeah.
is your game. So would you kind of jump in and kind of take the lead on this with
100%.
Rose? Diane?
Yeah, Orlando, what do you, I totally understand what you're saying. And I wonder is there a way to create a kind of, I don't want to make this too cumbersome and too much, but is there a way we can do a strategy? So like, I know organizations just don't do a one and done. It's part of a strategy. So the strategy is you put out the first video, then you follow up with some really specific language and really highlight the second video. And I'm not suggesting a third video. And then there's some kind of third event. I'm just making up the number that you follow up. So it's not just these one-offs. It's part of a campaign, if you will, and a strategy to position the IDA. Because frankly, I agree with you, but I also intuitively, I'm thinking, given my time on the board, people don't get us. And I'm not sure one video, a standalone would do it versus a strategy of different, touchstones, if you will, and us pushing things out in a very purposeful way.
Agree, 100%. I think what we need to do is those other push outs may not need to be a video, may need to either be a quick one sheet that's done very well that you can kind of quickly highlight and see top things. And then we send out a strategy like that over time. And it's something that lives both on the website as well as gets sent out to whoever wants to see it. So to me, that video, if you kind of create it, look, what we just saw, that could have been shortened down and added a few of the things you wanted, Diane, and made a little bit more condensed. I loved that video. I was like sitting there watching going, wow. I mean, even sitting on the board, I was like, wow, those are the things we do. How do we just do all of that in a quick video and then send out? And I love your strategy idea, because I think every month we should be sending out something internally that goes out to all of the county legislatures and the boards, and then letting them send that out. Having something that's up on the website is just producing videos constantly. You don't get a lot of people watching these because it's just not the thing. But if it's something quick and we put it out and we do a little press around it, like, hey, if you really want to understand this, here's what it is. And then like, here's the list of all the documents after that are just one sheets, that could work really well. But
Okay,
I'll
well,
help
let's
them out. We can see both ways.
Let's
Thanks,
let
Orlando.
Orlando take the lead on this. Anyone who wants to work alongside Orlando. I do know.
I'll definitely be interested in that.
Okay, I do know that on the various cable systems in the county, you're able to buy some commercial time. Okay, and it's not over the top cost. Where if you come up with and quarterly decide to, maybe it's a 30-second snippet or whatever it may be, and you get X amount that you can run during a day on certain programs. Maybe you could put that in there and utilize that. But Orlando, work with Rose, and whoever wants to work with Orlando, let's set it up and keep our fingers crossed and move on from there.
Happy to help too, Orlando.
Okay, just let them know, and we'll you guys set up your own schedule on when you want to meet and what you want to do. Okay, good thinking. Good stuff there, Danny. Thanks for getting it for us.
So that's it for me, Chair.
Okay. Any questions for the CEO? No? Okay. Committee reports. Audit Committee.
Thank you, Chair. On page 13, you'll see the local Brill report for Innis. So their total monthly compliance was 96%. compared to 82.6% last month, and overall compliance of 82.70. So that's and so the other part about this is that Loki Brill is also waiting on the spa construction schedule for Innis, although they're getting labor reports and insurance information now. And then the only other thing to update you on is RBW Studio. The job is now active, and Loki Brill is in the process of collecting insurance information and the like.
You have a list of the contractors. Do you get that, a list of the contractors who are up there?
On the one report, you didn't see it this month, Diane, because obviously RBW, are you asking for RBW or Innis? Or both?
RBW.
No.
Okay. Yeah, so we didn't get anything yet.
Okay, and the reason I ask, I don't personally care who the contractors are. What I do care about is someone back checking and making sure we have certificates of comp and disability, because that comes back to us, okay? So that
Yeah.
needs to be a part of it.
Yep, Loki Brill will do that.
All right. That's the end of my report, Chair. I don't know if there's any questions.
Questions for Dr. Einen? Well, can I get a motion to accept the audit report as presented?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Faye. I have a second by Orlando Reese. All those in favor? Aye, opposed?
Aye.
Carried. Thank you. Finance.
Chair,
Right.
we went over the 2021 to 2025 budget for consideration on page 14. Rose, I think, can explain this. There's not much changed.
So the only thing that was a large change, if you go to page 15, you can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 columns over that's white before the first gray column. Is the largest change is going to be the project closing fees for this year. Obviously, most of that is due to the Kingstonian, and then we've had a huge influx in projects as compared to other years. So then what we've typically done in the past is do a 5-year average for each of the years forward on the project closing fees, which is why the numbers vary for the next few years. We're required by ABO to do a 5-year budget. And every year when we do it, we obviously come back and revise it, as well as we're doing right now, revising 2021, because it's just impossible to know some of the stuff that goes on. Other than that, there was no change for 2021 for the administrative fees. It's possible that we'll even come in under budget on that. And live stream was down a little bit just because we managed to have a little bit less in meetings than anticipated. The project expense pass through and the project administrative fees pass through, those two go together. That's higher than what was anticipated, but that's not income or expense to us. That's just money in and out because we had more projects, so more expenses being passed through to projects this year. The one other change was the grants. Although we knew that was happening last year, we did not know last year in October that, exactly how much would be carrying over to 2021. So the final amount budgeted would be the $38,400 of grants. Other than that, I just bumped stuff up and down a little bit, like, as small as you can see. Insurance went up a little bit. Travel and meals came down because obviously the conferences were mostly on Zoom. And then the one conference that was in person, I did not go to this year because I didn't see topics that were going to be very helpful to us for the amount of travel involved. Does anybody have any other questions other than what was discussed at the Finance Committee? This is exactly as what was there. We didn't make any changes.
Awful quiet today, Rick.
Everything is running so well.
Okay, can I get a motion to accept the finance report as presented?
So moved.
I have a motion. I have a second from Dan Savona under the big mirror. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Governance?
Jimmy, I just need to be clear. So you're all approving the budget because I have to submit it to ABO.
We just did that, right? Yeah.
Okay.
Or do you want a roll call on that? Counselor,
I don't-
roll call?
Yeah. Is that necessary, Joe?
I think it's good practice on something that.
Okay,
that's
move it. I move that we do a roll call vote on acceptance of the budget.
Thank you. James Malcolm,
Yes.
Diane Einen,
Yes,
Michael Ham is absent with notice. Faye Storms,
Yes.
Orlando Reese. He said yes.
Yes.
Daniel Savona
Yes.
and Richard Jones.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank
Back into
Governance.
governance.
So there's nothing to report for governance, as there was no meeting over this last month. I just want to remind you all that there's a governance committee meeting on November 3rd. There'll also be an audit committee meeting the same day. I believe it's audit that's at 9 o'clock. And then obviously audit for the CRC, and then governance for the IDA and governance for the CRC. And that's it, Chair.
Okay, great. Old business, status of pending projects.
Thank you, Chair. It's on page 16 of your materials. As you're flipping, I'll start. Wildberry, no change. Kingstonian, papers are in the works, and I'm going to have those to Rose and Rick this week. Aptheria, papers are out and they're being reviewed by their counsel. Magruder, no change there. They're working on their application unless Rose has anything that she wants to add. Romeo, again, we've discussed that. That's on hold with respect to the IDA. There is a potential action item with the CRC, and we're happy to discuss that now or at the CRC meeting. Bayside Marlboro, they've updated their application. We've included a public hearing resolution for consideration by the board on that. We can discuss that when we get to that action item. And then a new addition to the pending transaction list is the TDI CHPE transmission line. There was a pre-screen on that, and we have a public hearing resolution for consideration, and we can discuss that matter more at that action or at that agenda item. That's my report, Chair.
Let me ask you a question. Would it behoove us to get a written explanation from Steve Turk as to his status, where he is, and
Oh,
go ahead, Rose.
sorry, Steve actually gave me a call this past month after the board meeting. I think somebody must have put a bug in his ear to give a call.
You think?
He said, please, please, please still keep him on the list, because he does still plan on moving forward with the project. And I also explained to him what we had discussed at the meeting, which is that he would likely have to do another public hearing just because so much time had gone, and he obviously understood that.
Okay, but you know, it might not be a bad idea to get a written documentation from him, an overview of where he stands, and just so everyone has an understanding and it's on record.
Sure, I will let him know.
You think that works, Joe?
I think that's very prudent, Chair. We have asked his counsel to respond and haven't had, and his counsel hasn't been able to get any response. So what you're suggesting is a very good
And then
idea.
maybe he needs another public meeting. Who knows? I don't know. Whatever best it would suit him, it would be in his best interest, I think. But I got you. All right. Okay. Any questions on any of the pending projects other than what I just asked? No? Okay. Pending enforcement matters. Page 18.
Yes, page 18. Thank you, Chair. The first two matters, Amthor and Viking, I've been advised that they have done their refinancings. I'm just getting the final paperwork so that we can complete our files. Greenhouse, I'll be candid, I'm probably a week or two behind on getting those papers out there. They've accepted the transaction. They've accepted the revised terms, and so that's just a matter of getting documents signed. Darien Lake, they've essentially agreed also, Chair. What's holding me up on that one is that they've raised some legitimate questions about prior billings from the county with respect to pilot payments. I'm trying to track that down, so I'll have a more detailed explanation at your next meeting. And with respect to the big one there, Golden Hill, that's all completed. I've got that there for the last time. The papers have been signed. The papers have been recorded. and the papers have been sent to Golden Hill. There's been absolutely no reaction to any of my correspondence with them. I guess, backing up a little bit, I do need to compute with the help of the city assessor a clawback bill, and I'll have that done. But the issue that I was most concerned about, candidly, was whether there'd be any questions from them regarding the termination of this matter, and there's been absolutely nothing.
I think,
we emailed, we faxed, we Federal Express, so they have everything and anything that we've done with respect to cleaning that project up.
I think Golden Hill is actually a case study, and it really gives a good overview of how this whole process works. And when someone says to us, well, what if this doesn't happen? What if that doesn't happen? You follow this thing to the end, and you put them back on the tax rolls, and you entertain clawbacks, and it shows people the process. So unfortunately, it had to go that way. But in a way, it gives people something to refer to. So good work, Joe. I appreciate it. All right. Bayside Marlboro. Who's handling it? Rose, Joe?
Yeah, so I'll just start and I'll introduce the Baxter team over there to really explain what's going on. But they had kind of gone back to the drawing board a little bit about what we were asking and taking into consideration what we were looking for. And they obviously heard multiple times that we would really, really prefer to see more jobs. So they kind of came up with what they thought might be a solution for that. And Joe and I had discussed, because of the changes in the project, it seemed like it would make sense if the board felt so inclined to do another public hearing resolution, because this is such a different sort of a different concept from what was approved before for a public hearing. Ev, and I'm saying Ev just because it was her name, but obviously Lauren, Eric, and I see Dan is there too.
And Eric as well.
Yeah,
Did I say Eric or no? Sorry.
Said it with a French accent. They didn't understand.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Baxter, Rieger team.
Rose, can you let me share screen?
Thank you.
I don't know the answer to that because I'm already a co-host on here. So give me 1 second. If not, I can ask Aaron to do it.
If anything, you can make me a co-host as well. I don't think there's a limit of how many co-hosts.
I cannot. Aaron, are you able to make Ev? It says Evgenia. I'm going to ruin it. I'm sorry, Ev. Evgenia Fedotova. Can you make that person a host?
Just give the ability to share screen.
You're the co-host now, it says.
Okay.
It's done. Ev, did you get the notice?
Yep, I can present now.
Oh, great.
Thank you.
Oh.
I think they can see.
Yep,
Everyone.
we can.
Yeah, awesome. So again, thanks for having us, and thanks for your patience as we went back to the drawing board, as Rose said. We really heard the board loud and clear that jobs are an important factor. So we went back to the drawing board and was able to add another parcel to the project, which includes a 12,000 square foot commercial building, where we're able to bring jobs to the project. So now we're looking at again, to reiterate, a total of 104 units. With the 10% affordable and 12,000 square feet of commercial space, a creation of 75 to 100 local construction jobs over a 12 to 15 month span, and 10 full-time equivalent jobs by year 3.
Okay, before we go any further, just quick, give a definition of what affordable is for the public who may be looking in at this.
Sure. We included
Ballpark.
Sure, 80% of AMI.
So we included.
Now
10
explain that to the people who don't know what AMI is.
Sure, so it takes the average income of the area and assumes 80% of that is what's earned by individuals, right? And then there's, I mean, that flows through to what the the rentable amount is. So there's a calculation of like a 30% rent burden based on what they make, and then that translates to what the max amount you can charge for the units is.
So if I was a lay person and I said, just throwing a number out there,
Yeah.
if a person is 20% under the typical wages in a home, is their apartment going to be marketed? You know, when you say 80%, does that mean their apartment it'll cost them 80% of where the other units will cost?
Not of the other units, of 100% of AMI. So what will happen is these individuals will have to apply, and they'll be income qualified through their tax returns, and they'll have if someone makes too much money, they won't be able to qualify for this unit. So it's reserved for individuals making.
All right, thank you. It's better the process gets explained in person. So thank you very much.
And if it's helpful to just throw numbers at that, a 2-bedroom apartment, I'll just give this example, a 2-bedroom apartment for 100% of AMI, right? This is what they're saying. The average income for the area is about $80,000, a little less than that. So 80% of that would say, if you make 63,000 or less, you would qualify, like Eric said. And then your rent would be for that 2-bedroom about $1,500 per month.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. I think that puts people, gives them a little more perspective.
Okay.
Awesome.
Sorry about that.
No problem. Again, we will look to employ as many Ulster County companies as possible before, during, and after stabilization of the project. We'll be stimulating the local economy through increased density in the area, as well as providing a local benefit to the Marlborough School District through new infrastructure that we're putting in place on our property that the school district would have the ability to use. Again, this is just circling back to what we presented last time. These are just similar projects that we've worked on in the past, just similar finishes, similar aesthetic that our team can bring to the table. LaGrange Farms at Overlook, Churchill Apartments, which are in Beacon, New York, 472 Maple Street in the city of Poughkeepsie. And this is the Academy, which shows some relevant commercial experience and affordable housing.
Yeah, so just a reminder of where this project is located on 9W. Obviously, you see the map here. So we can go to the next slide and show you again the residential building layouts. And if we keep going, we'll see the added commercial parcel. So this is right along 9W. So it's kind of at the street front of the parcel, with the residential units being up the hill and back away from the road a bit.
And as you can see, we're also adding sidewalk to, which I believe isn't there currently, to 9W as well.
This is the same plans and elevations and layouts we've shown in the past. No difference here. You know, I think the commercial piece we would make kind of you know, consistent with the residential buildings, and would provide like a nice, you know, corridor along 9W down to the main strip.
Yeah.
Just down the road from us.
Yeah, here's a list of some of the community benefits that we think this project brings to the community and Ulster County as a whole. Again, 75 to 100 construction jobs during the construction period, 10 full-time employees, which we projected as 5 sales employees, 2 admin jobs, 2 service jobs, and 1 management job. The school benefits would be provide Marlboro Middle School with necessary improvements to help the safety of their school children. This would be a new access or egress point for the buses and students to exit onto 9W with a light in place. We think there'll be a large amount of economic stimulant through this project. We look at this as kind of an urban infill project where we're right outside the hamlet of Marlboro. We'll have 200 new residents within walking distance of the village. Here's a statistic from the U.S. Bureau of Labor that the average annual expenditure per household in Ulster County is $48,015. With that increase, Ulster County can expect $4.99 million of revenue annually. Yep. Again, we'll have an emphasis on employing Ulster County companies during and after the construction period, and there'll be an increase of $156,000 in rec fees to the town of Marlboro.
And I think the important thing to point out here is that we didn't change any of our assumptions for the economic stimulants since we proposed just the residential project. We haven't calculated in here what the impact would be now that we're proposing that we build 12,000 square feet of commercial. And then the second thing that dovetails into the second thing to point out on this slide, which is the 10 full-time jobs, which the delta now is the 7 jobs that we would create with the commercial component. So on the project financials, this is the same market rate and affordable rate assumptions that we presented last time. Again, this here shows for a 2-bedroom unit, you see that 2 earner income totaling $79,000. I think I didn't state that before, that it's not an individual making $79,000 for the year. It's household, so 2 earners. So we can keep going. And then here, what changed on this pro forma, the only thing that changed is the commercial space. So we're assuming that we have 12,000 square feet of commercial space, renting it at about $15 per square foot. So obviously that increases our revenue a bit and, allows us to sort of recoup the costs of building this additional parcel and building and parking lot and infrastructure that goes along with it. So along with changing our presentation here, and what we've proposed is a change to the pilot schedule. We've gone back and forth quite a few times, starting at 25 years and pretty aggressive. We pulled that back, we front loaded it. Again, like Eric said, we heard you loud and clear about the jobs. So we went away and figured out how to make that work by adding the commercial component, which obviously adds some cost to the project for us, which we make up in revenue. But net, where we came out is that the pilot schedule would need to change from our standpoint when we looked at the financial feasibility. And this is the schedule that we're proposing. So the I guess probably most important thing to talk about here, based on our last conversations, is what it looks like in the first 5 years. And what we've come up with is a schedule that goes from 13% to 20% over the first 5 years. And those payments are stepping up from $75,000 in year 1 to $115,000 year 5, up to $500,000 in year 15. And this is the same schedule, just in the IDA format, presentation. So if this is a little bit more helpful to, understand and digest, then we just presented it in this format. And I think with that, we'd love to hear, any of the board's feedback. And maybe if my colleagues have anything to add, they can do that now.
Go ahead, Rick.
Morning, everybody. So whoever was speaking, I'm sorry, what was your first name?
Lauren.
Hi, Lauren. So just, I guess, 2 or 3 questions. Somewhere in here, I see that 15-year pilot, but somewhere in here, I thought I also saw something that full tax would not be paid until the 19th year. Here it is. Taxes with development over 15 years, 2.78 million. Full taxes. Well, help me understand between year 15 and year 19.
Thank you.
Pilot ends at year 15 and full taxes start getting paid in year 16.
Sure. So Rick, I think the issue is that, like I mentioned, we started the conversations with a 25-year pilot. We pulled that back to 18 years. We changed what the schedule looked like and front loaded it quite a bit. I suspect that we may have just left verbiage in there from a previous presentation that talks about the full taxes happening in year 19, whereas now what we're proposing is full taxes hitting in year 16. So we even, we reduced the pilot.
Okay, so year 16, not 19.
Yeah, so now what we're proposing is a 15-year pilot schedule. And again, it's a little bit more aggressive, but we tried to front load it as much as we could.
Okay, the second question, and right now the only other question, for some reason, and maybe it's just wishful thinking, I thought the affordable housing was more than 10%.
So
was the original proposal 15?
No, we were at 10% at our last presentation. I think we had a pre-screen session where we threw around the idea of increasing it to 15%, the affordable units. And, we didn't think that was going to get this project across the finish line. So instead we kept the 10% that we had proposed and added the commercial. So I think there was conversation about what would it look like if we increase the affordable to 15%, but we never actually submitted an application with the 15% affordable. Instead, we changed directions, pivoted to add more jobs, and instead added the commercial component, but kept the 10% because that's something we've put out there already. And we think it's, good for the project and for the area. Does that answer your question?
So what would be the impact on the project if you did have the commercial and 15%? And then my final question is actually for Joe. Joe, since there's still residential, do we still need to go and get approval from the 3 taxing authorities involved here?
Well, there's really 2 issues there, right, Rick? One is this is a pilot deviation, right? So we need their approval on the pilot deviation. And under our current housing policy, we do need the approval of the locals. But bear in mind that we're operating under a moratorium, correct? With respect to housing. And so the discussion we had at the last meeting was, is it appropriate to move forward with this project? And I think the discussion was that certainly with respect to holding a public hearing with respect to the project, that the board thought it would be appropriate because it would help the board in its consideration of the general issue of housing if not only did we hold hearings and meetings and get information about housing in general, but it would also help the board in consideration of housing if we got comments on this particular project. So I think what's before the board today is obviously an amended application reflecting, in the words of the project applicant, that they've reworked the project to the best that they can, again, using their language, to address the job issue that has been raised by the in connection with the pre-screening and the full board, and also whether we consider approving a public hearing resolution and scheduling a public hearing with respect to the project.
So just, Lauren, the question about 15%, what would that do to the financials if you went to the 15% affordable?
Yeah, so I think, we could always go away and look at the numbers. My initial reaction in kind of playing around and seeing, what we could do here is that if we increase the percentage of affordable, which I don't believe at this point we're required to do, but we're obviously trying to work together to make this thing happen. My initial instinct is if we increase the percentage of affordable, we may need to rely on the market rate units being higher, I think, than a lot of people would like to see those market rate units go for. And I would just hate to have a project that gets approved for a pilot and we have an affordable component. And then on the flip side, we have to push rents on some of the free market units to make up for that, right? Because the margins are still pretty tight right now. We don't typically build a lot of commercial, especially not a standalone commercial building. And, we're taking sort of, I don't want to speak out of turn, but, taking the chance. We want to get the project done. We like the area. We think it makes sense. And it would be, I think, a little touchy for us to wind up increasing affordable units.
Yeah,
and push rents.
I think piggybacking on what Lauren said, I think the building more commercial space right now in the climate and going on to a lot more online retail and a lot of work being done remote is makes the project a little riskier. We're definitely willing to take that on and make it work. But yeah, it would adding the 5% more affordable would just make the project even more riskier.
I had a question for anyone there on the board. Have you done a demographic study of the area to determine the vacancy rate of your commercial buildings and if there's a need for commercial space?
Yeah, we haven't done an in-depth study of the commercial component. I think in the demographic study that we did relative to residential, we did have components of industry and commercial we looked at that. We can certainly dive into it more. I think what we've heard from some individuals in the town that we've spoken with is, we need housing to bring the jobs. We need commercial to bring jobs. And so we're hoping that providing a well-rounded project, we can get there. But I hear your question on, what's the vacancy in the area? What's the demand for new space? And we can certainly dive into that more.
Our thesis is that the 104 new units would help support the commercial space as well. So it's almost commercial town amenities that will be supported by the residential.
Don, you want to weigh in on that? Being a real estate guy from Marlboro?
Yeah, I can tell you there's a pretty strong demand right now for commercial. The biggest problem everybody in the commercial sector is facing is available labor. But as far as the demand for raw service type space, smaller footprints are in higher demand than bigger footprints, I will tell you. So it will depend how this 12,000, I think that fact will weigh into, I'm sure, how you carve up the 12,000 square feet. Obviously, there would be maybe a potential to get one user that could take the whole building, but if not, I would say in general, the demand is highest for smaller footprint type users.
Yeah, I'm not, I'm not carrying the water for the project, but being pretty familiar with that Marlboro area, in the village proper, we'll say, it's a weird layout of the town. There isn't really any corridor. So all these projects, whether it was the pods or anything else, are on the outskirts or up and away. But this one here, again, gives access to people walking from the village and residents. They don't have to be locked into getting into a car to go over there, kind of thing. So it's just a weird kind of layout in the village.
They don't. Nobody makes that walk today because there's not a reason to go in that direction. If there was a destination there, they would. And particularly if there's sidewalks, that'll just make it, a nice, comfortable thing to do. Today, it's not so comfortable, but.
Diane,
Yes,
you gotta.
Yep, thank you. So I want to step back. I just wanted to ask a question about the 10 jobs that you'll be adding with the project, and just talk about in terms, will they be prevailing wage? What are the salaries and also benefits that you're thinking of offering these employees?
We're not, three of the jobs are coming straight from property management, and they would be employees of Baxter Property Management, which we offer 401k, we offer health insurance, we offer paid time off. So there's quite a few benefits to those individuals. The property manager would be the property manager, and the maintenance manager would both be salaried position. Then the third would be a more of a porter for the community, and they would be an hourly position. And then the other 7 jobs would come from the commercial, and we're assuming those are, 1 managerial position, 2 service positions, and 4 like retail sales positions.
So,
And prevailing wage salaries?
They would all be making a living wage.
It's on, if it's helpful, page 33 of the packet has a breakdown of the
Thank you.
wages.
right on that.
So I just didn't have it in front of me, Diane, so.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Sorry, Diane, just point of information, prevailing wage is a term typically used for construction jobs.
Right.
Yeah.
So, it just for the record, it was 5 jobs at 40,000. 4 jobs at 65,000 and 1 at 70,000.
Now, those numbers reflect wages and benefits, or what does that number reflect, 40 and 65,000?
Wages and benefits.
Okay, so the $40,000, just ballpark me on your benefit package, because it doesn't seem like a tremendous amount. I'm just trying to get a sense of, because I know what healthcare costs, and I assume what 401s are. So just give me some sort of ballpark.
Eric, I'm sorry. Eric, I think you misunderstood the question there. He was asking if that $40,000 figure that you put as the salary, is that 40,000 inclusive of the cost of benefits, or is that physically what someone's getting paid and then benefits on top of it?
It's 40,000 inclusive of benefits. Dan, do you want to?
Yeah, so the 7 of the 10 jobs are a little hard for us to give you exact answers on at this time, because our expectation is that another company would become a tenant of that space and be hiring those employees.
Right.
So it's not necessarily our exact decision to control what they make. Obviously, our intention with this is to guarantee those new jobs by building this commercial space, but we can't necessarily identify exactly what they're going to be paid and exactly what their benefits packages are. but we can work with the company
Yeah.
to try to make it
But
as good.
on the $40,000 one, essentially, that sounds to me as though it's minimum wage with elective benefits and 401 on top of it.
Right, and then
Am
the
I
question.
correct when I
Right.
assume that?
So what's the hourly wage that we had come up with for the 40,000? Because I think we did math. Ev did
It's
some math
around
on it.
like, it's in between that $19.29 to 25.
So
Okay.
I guess my question would be then, could someone who makes that salary be able to afford one of your affordable housing?
Yes.
Yes, if they live with a partner, because it's a 2-bedroom. So it takes into account a household of 2. So they would 2 individuals making 40,000 would be above the 80 would be between 80 and 90%.
Or they could even, I think, without looking at the numbers, but off the top of my head, I think 2 earners at that anticipated wage would be able to even qualify for a 3-bedroom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So,
Okay,
I
go ahead.
just wanted to confirm then that those 7 jobs are projected. They wouldn't be through your company, or they'd be through the possibility of retail being there and the retail jobs, and you would have no control over what happens with the retail jobs, or you would have complete control over what you would be dictating as to salaries, et cetera.
Before they get into that, Faye, this is no different than the Kingstonian. If you're claiming that there's going to be 10 jobs, then you're responsible for the 10 jobs.
That's what I was getting at, yeah.
You're responsible. It's if you say we have somebody coming in and is going to do this and that, that's not our problem. That's your issue. So
Correct.
understand that you're responsible for it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And we are making a $3+ million.
Okay, but just don't want any misunderstanding.
Yeah, no, we're building the structure. We intend to, we need to go out and find these jobs. We're just saying is that, the hope is that it's through a tenant, that hires the employees, and that there's a new business being created to come in and generate those new jobs.
Again, if your tenant doesn't hire employees, you're on the hook for those jobs.
Sure,
Then we
we
gotta
understand.
hire some people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That just,
We'd be facing those.
we tell people a lot, sometimes they come to us, and I'm not saying you, but I think we shared this, that they give you this number and they inflate jobs and they can't get there. And in the past, other boards have said, well, yeah, we can understand. We even had somebody come to us about something in 2019 and claim COVID, and there was no COVID at that point.
Mm-hmm.
So everybody should be clear what that represents. So thank you.
We understand.
Clear.
Thanks, Jimmy.
Thank you.
What else? Anybody else? Rick? I see you fussing over there, Rick. You got anything?
No, I'm good, Chair.
Orlando? Good. Danny? Faye? Diane? Okay.
I did have one more question. I'm sorry.
Please.
Regarding the school benefits, you talk about the school benefits, quality improvements, et cetera. What exactly are they that you're talking about? I know you're talking about egress and ingress and the logistical about the buses getting in and out because of the creation of the traffic light and what has to be cut, all that. But what are the school benefits?
Yeah, so right now the school only has basically one way in and one way out, which creates a major traffic issue during the school year at that point right now. So what we'd be doing is we'd be adding, can you go back to the commercial piece? I just want to show her it's.
Yeah.
Sorry, we're just going to share so we can physically show you what we're adding. The entrance to our new community will actually touch the school's road system, and the buses will be able to travel onto our property, and turn right or left at the stoplight that we're adding to 9W there. There's already a stop site, but a light, a traffic light, but we're adding another way
So
to
it's
it.
currently a three-way light, we're adding a fourth.
Right here, see this road right here on 9W? That road right there is new. And that'll travel up to the school. And the buses will be able to leave at that light and take a right or a left from there, which will add to the safety for the kids and obviously the bus drivers as well.
It's very,
Okay.
very difficult for, if people living in Marlboro, John can probably attest to this, but if the buses need to turn left, it's very difficult and could create a hazard there for.
Okay, so it's not school benefits, it's the road benefits, basically. It's not the school or the kids, it's just it's the benefits so that there's a proper ingress and egress.
Yeah,
to
so
your
I mean,
project.
yeah, it's benefits to the community on traffic and I mean, it's benefit to the school and the kids. I mean, it's a lot safer with this light and this egress there now. Yeah, much safer.
But wouldn't that be something required anyways by your county?
We're going
If you're
to.
gonna do this
creating
project,
an
wouldn't that be
access
required?
point, But we're gonna be creating an access point for the school to then access this piece within our property. And we're also adding some additional parking.
Okay. Do you have to secure DOT approvals on any of this?
I believe. I think that is already done, and there's a
You're the developer. You got to let me know if it's already done.
yeah, no, that's already done, and there's a bond in place already for that work.
Okay, all right. Currently, I know there's a guy who does traffic there. He does it during the school day, so he's not there at 4 a.m. and he's not there at 6 p.m. So there is benefit with the people coming in and out of that area, but so there is a DOT approval, a cut you have to get.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Faye?
Thank you.
Anyone else? All right, so where does this leave us, Rose?
So we just need to decide, or you need to decide, if you want to vote on the public hearing resolution that's very similar to the one that you voted on before, which was last month, to at least push this to a public hearing to get some input from the locals. The resolution, Joe did a good job of highlighting what the changes were from what we had last time. So if you go to page 98 of the packet, that's the start of the resolution. Page 99, the first highlight says that there was an amended application that was submitted.
Okay, do I have to decide first that to put it to a vote to hold a public hearing? Or do I just decide that it warrants a public hearing? It's the same project with just some. So please tell me, before you said it's either up, is it up to me to decide that, or so then we can start going through the information?
So do we need to make a motion to go to a public hearing?
No, just wait a second. Joe?
Well, to be honest, Chair, I'm not sure your question. Procedurally, what we do is we consider a public hearing resolution if we're intending to move forward with holding the public hearing.
Oh, okay, just the CEO made a comment, it's up to, and then she said it's up to you to decide, meaning me, and I don't think that's the case.
No, I'm sorry, I meant the board. I meant you
Okay,
all.
so
Sorry.
do you want to go through a roll call vote on a public hearing? To move to a public hearing for this, with an amended plan?
I do have a question about that. Aren't we in a moratorium for housing?
No,
So-
this is, we're not doing anything other than having a public hearing. at
So this would be an informational
Absolutely.
session. Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
I'll make a motion.
Dr. D, well, let's get a motion in a second, and then we can have a question, okay?
Second.
Do I have a second? Diane, you seconding? Okay. Anyone on the question? Nobody? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried. So we will schedule a public hearing for this amended application.
Okay, I just need to do a roll call though. So James
Right.
Malcolm,
Yes.
Diane Einen,
Yes.
Faye Storms,
Yes.
Michael Ham was absent with notice. Orlando Reese,
Yes.
Daniel Savona,
Yes.
and Richard Jones.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
You come up with some dates, work with them, and then we'll. Because I don't like to travel down to Marlboro. That's enemy territory when you're from Highland.
I know.
And you're Irish. And being Irish.
For bad news for you, Jimmy, but public hearings don't get to be via Zoom right now.
We'll hold them in Milton then.
Okay.
That's split territory.
Jimmy,
Okay.
you're welcome. You're welcome anytime, Jimmy.
I know. We should hold it in Frank's Deli. That way everybody will show up.
There we go. There we go. I think I can arrange that.
All right. So everybody's happy with the Bayside group. We can move on. Thank you for your time.
Thank
You
you.
can hang around
Thank
if you
you.
want, but you don't have to.
Thank you.
That brings us to
Appreciate it.
Champlain Hudson Power Express. Do we have anyone on from there?
We do. So
Yes, hi, good
there's,
morning. Todd Singer. Sorry,
Hi,
Rose.
Todd.
Todd Singer, I'm the CFO of the company.
Good.
And we also
Rose,
have
you wanna do some
Chief Swartz, our
introductions?
counsel on. I'm sorry?
Rose?
yep, sure. So Todd, and then Rick Chase, who was not able to stay on this long because of prior commitments, had met with myself and Joe and Diane, and we, I think Diane and I asked a ton of questions at the pre-screen. It's an extremely, not fairly, it's an extremely complicated project, which I know Todd will do a really good job of explaining. He's been working on this for 11 years. And he's been there. I think there was literally one question that we asked that he had to look up. So I know he'll do a good job of explaining exactly what this is and why they need a pilot.
Okay, so thank you. So Rose, should I just give a quick overview of the project and so forth? So,
Please.
okay, all right. Well, thank you all for joining. See some familiar faces, some new faces, but thank you for the time. And it was a pleasure seeing another developer in the arena going through the same process that we are. So it's a familiar theme. So again, so the Champlain Hudson Power Express is a 1,250 megawatt transmission line that is coming from US-Canada border down to New York City, buried underwater and underground. It is about 340 miles. There will be an above ground converter station in New York City and Queens where it will connect to the AC power grid. It's a $3+ billion infrastructure project. We recently participated in an RFP issued by NYSERDA, which is the New York State Energy Research and Development Authority, which nobody calls them that, just NYSERDA. They're the party that administers the renewable energy credit programs for New York State. The RFP related to Tier 4 renewables, which is a new tier of renewables, which the New York State Public Service Commission created via an order about a year ago, almost to the day. And then an RFP was issued. So what these Tier 4 credits represent is Tier 4 renewable energy credits. It's to bring their credits in order to bring renewable power directly into New York City. So an RFP was issued, like I said. We participated and we were selected in the RFP. It was announced by the governor on September 20th. So we've been shot out of a cannon, as you might imagine. And so we are working to get through that process and get all the agreements signed with respect to our subscribing for our transmission line, with respect to the power that is coming from Hydro-Quebec. So it's all hydropower that's coming down from Canada into New York City. And we are going to be starting our financing process over the next month or so. And then have a construction start in early next year. So what does this mean for Ulster County specifically, and why are we talking to this group? So we are seeking pilots from 13 of the 15 counties that we are going through. Property taxes are our largest operating expense, and it's critical for us to understand what those property taxes are going to be on a long-term basis. The project has a 60+ year life, 60+ year life, and in order for us to get financing and get terms that we estimated in the binding pricing that we put into the RFP, we need to get pilots in place with the various counties. So the trivia question asked on the last call I couldn't answer. So there are 2 counties that we're not seeking pilots from. One, we're in that county for about a half a mile, another one for about 2 miles. So it's not that efficient for us from a cost perspective. But in Ulster County specifically, back to the point I was going to make. So we're going to be in Ulster County for about 18.5 miles, all underwater in the river. It is, from a capital cost perspective, it's about $70 million in capital costs that we'll be spending on cable, transmission cable. So it's about 5.5-inch transmission cable. There actually will be 2 of them, with in each of them about a 2-inch copper conductor, and then there will be insulation around the cable, and so that will be installed in the river in a couple of years, and that will occur in kind of a 1 to 2 month time period, and then you won't see us ever again.
Okay, here's a question I got before you get a lot further down the river, we'll say. Give me a direct benefit. It's all this power is going to the city, right? It's going down there, and you'll be paying less taxes. So you tell me what the benefit is to Ulster County.
Yeah, so the benefit to Ulster counties, so we will be paying property taxes. What we're proposing is to pay property taxes over the 30-year pilot that is equivalent to about $29 million. $1 million a year, roughly, starting in the first year of operations. We will not be using any infrastructure. We will not be sending any kids to school. We're not going to be sending any folks to using the police or the fire department, and so there are significant benefits. It's a lot of jobs that are going to be created during construction, some of which would be in Ulster County, 1,400 jobs for the overall project, most of which will be union jobs, except for some very specialized items like cable splicing.
What would be your tax burden if you didn't have a pilot for property tax?
If with Ulster County?
Yep.
Yeah. So just 1 second here. Great. So if we didn't, we would pay about $2.5 million just based on the proposal that we sent across to Rose, who pay about $2.5 million in the first year versus the $1 million that we're proposing.
Over the 30 years.
For the 30 years, so that the schedule that we provided would be about $94 million if we did not have a pilot versus $29 million with the pilot. And so what we've, just to give you a little bit of context, and I understand the concern, give you a little bit of context in terms of when we've spoken to other IDAs, because we've obviously had a lot of these conversations with folks and kind of similar, but not the same questions. And speaking for other IDAs, not you, but how they're thinking about it is they view it as found money, as particularly the counties where the cable is all underwater, and even in the ones where it's underground, places like Saratoga, Schenectady, they said their exact words were it's a no-brainer. So, and there's a little bit more impacts because we're on railroads and on roads in some places.
Okay, so we don't lose track of where we're going. If we could just put a hold on it for a second. We have a couple of board members with questions. First going to be Rick Jones, then Dr. Diane Einen. So go ahead, Rick.
Todd, thanks for appearing before us. I had looked at the application last night, and when I guess I didn't read 30 years, I saw the sheet, the estimated value sheet on page 119 and 120, and it said 15 years. So if it's 30 years, just for paperwork purposes and legal purposes, just go through that application again, and maybe Rose can help you, is make sure it's clear that it's a 30-year pilot, not a 15-year pilot.
Well, I had talked to them, just so you know, about submitting the same schedule that we do for other projects, but they were having trouble with the formulas in Excel for some reason. So we will be touching base and make sure that that's
Okay. Just a bookkeeping thing. Anything else, Rick?
That's it. Thank you, Chair.
Dr. D?
Yeah, thank you. Hi, Todd. Good to see you again. You'd think I wouldn't have any more questions after our pre-screen, but
All right,
two
bring
things
it on.
popped into mind here. One is when you were talking about it, that you were talking about there's no children going to school, so there's no additional cost to the county or fire and police. But then I was wondering these two things. One, if God forbid there was an accident or something, you actually would need fire, police to help, at the location. So that's one thing. And then the second thing I'm wondering is there would be, one of the things about Ulster County is bringing tourists here and enjoying the Hudson and the waterfront, et cetera. And it certainly would be disruptive to recreational use. I'm assuming on that 18.5 miles through Ulster County that you're going to need to lay the cable. So have you made any calculations about the economic disruption due to disturbance and recreational use of the Hudson along that 18.5 miles?
We have not, and it did not actually, in my recollection, it did not come up in the state permitting process. The focus for the river and also Lake Champlain, but the river was more on the environmental impacts and avoiding sensitive habitats and avoiding sturgeon spawning grounds. And then the navigational community, the maritime community, because they use the river, particularly south of Albany. It's not so much an issue in Lake Champlain. But what I would say is that there will be an install vessel. It will, I can't give you the exact measurements, but probably 75 feet wide by 100 feet long, call it. My engineers would kick me probably under the table for giving approximate measurements, but it would look like a barge with a carousel essentially of cable on there, and it would be going underwater. And then once the cable was laid, you wouldn't see us anymore. So it would be in a relatively isolated area. So thinking about the 18.5 miles, it would be what you're going to see at any one time, or what may, I'll use the word obstruct. It's not going, I personally don't believe it will obstruct, but in terms of just a visual impact, you'd see the barge along the 18.5 miles, and that's it. So
okay, but
it would be
real quick, and
Yep.
to piggyback on what Dr. Einen said, a couple of things. How are you fastening this cable? So there'll be support vehicles with construction people, pile drivers, divers, whatever underneath. And is there limited usage while the vessel is going? Will there be boats monitoring other boats and keeping them out of the area? But more important, well, I shouldn't say more important, as important, is it limited to everybody on one barge, divers, everyone else, or are there support vehicles? I would assume, having gone through the construction of the Tappan Zee Bridge, and I had 1,000 members work on that, it's not just one boat.
right. There will be support, and that's fair. There will be support vessels, but it's not like there's going to be a flotilla, is what I would call it, of 10, 15, 20 vessels. We just wouldn't do that. That's not required. The the install barge is kind of a self-contained vessel whereby it will have the cable on it as well as the water jet, and I'll explain how the install actually works because there is no pile driving or anything like that. So there will be and we can certainly give you more detail if you want it. I'm not the complete expert on our construction and engineering and design of exactly what's going to be going on that particular segment, but we can certainly have that as a follow-up. With respect to the technology and how it's being installed, we wouldn't have been able to get it permitted if we didn't use I believe we wouldn't be able to get it permitted if we didn't use a technology, which is basically a water jet. So you'll have a water jet that will be underwater down at the bottom of the lake, and it will essentially jet out a
trough.
A trough, yeah, exactly, for the cable down to a particular depth. We have very specific burial depths that we have to achieve and that we want to achieve from an operating perspective and from an insurance perspective. You don't want to just lay it on the bottom in a relatively shallow area where an anchor can hit it.
I won't be checking that job. Somebody else can go down and check that job.
So then there's water jet, and then the cable will go down into that trough immediately, and then the sediment comes over it. And to the extent that we are going over an existing piece of co-located infrastructure, like a gas line that goes from east to west across the river, or another electric line or a telecom line, we will use what's called mattressing. Think of it like bathroom tile sheets, but weighing about 20 tons each sheet, say 40 feet by 8 feet, and that will protect the existing cable. Then our cable will go over it, and then there'll be another level of protection on it. So it's like a sandwich and protecting everything. And that's all required via our state permit, in particular the Army Corps of Engineers permit, as they have purview over the navigable waterways.
Please continue.
Okay, so not exactly certain where I was. We kind of hit most of the points. I guess maybe in terms of the overall project benefits, would that be helpful to?
Yeah, well, I'm not from Saratoga, but I can tell you what, I think 94 million is better than 29 million. Call me crazy, but it's not found money. If you don't have this pilot, those are the numbers you're paying. And I assume you're going to do the project one way or another. So there has to be a benefit there.
Yeah, and I'll tell you that with respect to the pilots, we had to balance the fact of bidding in a price into the RFP that was as competitive as possible. It was a very competitive process. There were, I think, 7 other entities that competed. Us and another project were selected. And so we had discussions with a number of other counties. Ulster, admittedly, was a little bit later, as we were focused on the larger counties to make sure we got those advanced as well. And given that we're having 13 different discussions, it's a lot to handle at one time. So we had to pick our spots. But we need to solidify this in order to achieve the returns that we need. And if, for instance, none of the pilots happen, then that's going to be a very bad day for the project. So this is
real
something
quick, Todd.
Mhm.
I don't. Orlando Reese has a question, then we'll continue. Please mark off where you're at. I just don't want anybody to lose their train of thought.
Sure.
Great. Thank you, Chair. Thanks, Todd. Just really quick, you brought up a thing about there's about 1,400 jobs that are going to be created. And how do, certain counties like us here in Ulster guarantee that some of those jobs are part of people out of Ulster County, and we can show that they are working from Ulster County?
If you don't mind, Orlando, if they're doing a PLA, which I think they're probably going to end up doing, they write that into the project labor agreement, that the residents, if it's 70%, 80%, 90%, and then you monitor it.
Yeah. So,
and Chair, if I may, and Todd, if I may just jump in, and we'll have similar language in a clawback agreement, Orlando. So we'll have something similar with respect to that.
Thank you.
Yeah, and on top of that, as part of the NYSERDA Tier 4 RFP and the agreement that Hydro-Quebec is going to have with NYSERDA, and our essentially back-to-back agreement with Hydro-Quebec, there are economic benefits that we need to commit to, and that were part of our RFP response. We are going to be audited on those economic benefits after the third year of operations, and if we don't achieve 85% of the benefits that we indicate that we're going to achieve, there's going to be a big clawback. So that's the big clawback. So we are highly incentivized to deliver on those benefits, to deliver in terms of the jobs. And part of the overall job story is that's a critical part of and a critical piece of that economic benefits, because they're just the direct economic benefits, not any multiplier effects or anything like that. That is not counted, as that's obviously economic consultants can do that. And it's they create nice big numbers, but it's not that, you can't measure it very easily versus having jobs. So with Ulster County specifically, we have not committed, and the project is probably not advanced enough from a design perspective, but we will pull, whether it's for Ulster County on the submarine side or on the upland side, as we're going to have about 190 miles submarine, but also 140 miles underground. And we're going to need to employ a lot of laborers, a lot of operating engineers, a lot of IBEW workers. So we will pull from wherever we can find the workers. So Ulster County specifically, there is no specific commitment, I think, that we could probably make at this point, as we have not had that with others. And I personally wouldn't be able to make that. That would have to be in consultation with our construction team internally and with our construction contractors externally. They're actually going to build the physical project. So does that address it? Sorry,
so Todd, hi, Todd.
Hi.
So you're basically saying you can't guarantee the jobs that are going to be produced, and also you're going to be in and out of the area in a timely manner. So those jobs will be for a very short period of time for a 30-year pilot, where you want a $75 million credit for all this. And the benefits are going to be for us where and how and when, because it's all going to New York City.
So the benefits are not all going to New York City. So the overall benefits, it's going to result in about $17+ billion of electricity savings. A chunk of that will go to New York City. About $10 billion is estimated to go to New York City, but there will be benefits further upstate. So there will be reduced electricity bills. There's going to be decreased pollutants, emissions reductions equivalent to taking roughly 44% of the cars off New York City streets. An overall increase statewide of 20% in other air pollutants like NOx and SOx. There's also going to be, this could apply certainly in Ulster County. We have an $117 million environmental fund for the rivers and the lake specifically. So in terms of cleaning up the lake, doing studies of habitats and so forth. And there is an external governance group we sit on there, but we don't determine the projects. So there are certainly projects that could benefit Ulster County. With respect to that, we also have a $40 million green economy fund that is funded jointly with Hydro-Quebec to essentially focus on job training. And about 90% of that, we committed that 90% of that would go to disadvantaged communities. So to the extent that there are folks in Ulster County that relate to that, we would certainly want them to be a part of it. We also have to commit as part of the NYSERDA process and our commitment that we need to make to Hydro-Quebec. We need to track and hire minority-owned businesses, women-owned businesses, veteran-owned businesses, disabled veteran-owned businesses. So there will be other benefits, and we'll need to buy construction materials and the like.
Todd, how are you? Danny Savona, how are you?
Good.
Good. So you can't go through Dutchess County, correct? Dutchess side of the river?
We are going through Dutchess County for a period of time, but we are there are habitats and so forth and infrastructure that we need to avoid. So it kind of snakes down, and it's.
And you have all your permits. So,
yes,
I guess what I'm saying is, when you come in with an offer, you always come in a little bit low. You seem to have all the permits. You see, the project seems like it's going to go through regardless. And I'm sure there's part of us that do want to help you. So I guess, what more can you guys do as far as money wise? Because there's a $65 million difference here.
75.
No, it's 29 and
No, 60.
94.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Okay, so $65 million difference. Where what can you guys do? What can you do? You're always going to come. You're always going to come in a little bit lower. It's our job to have you come in a little bit higher.
Yeah, I understand how negotiations work. I understand the dance. So what I would say is what we have done with all the counties is that we feel we have come in with a fair offer, and let me explain what that means. So the New York State Office of Real Property Tax Services is where we went to initially for guidance about how do we approach property taxes? How do we approach not necessarily pilots, but it's really how do we value this? And if you look at the ORPS guidance and the most analogous projects or I guess parameters that they have in their guidance is for an overhead transmission line, an overhead AC transmission line, and an AC substation. And if we were to use that guidance for our project, the valuation was at such a low level that it just didn't pass the straight face test for us. So said differently, if our actual costs were $100, it valued our project at $50. And so we didn't follow that approach because it just didn't make sense. And we have 13 pilots that we're trying to negotiate, and we want to come out with an offer that is fair, that gets us to a conclusion relatively quickly. Obviously, people will have questions, and that's why we're here today to talk about this. So we feel that we put forward a very fair offer, and others have indicated that. We've obviously had discussions like this with other people, and we are trying to maintain consistency with the counties that are submarine. There's one abatement NPV type structure, and Ulster's is a little bit different. I'll talk about that in a second, related to Senator Skoufis, which I spoke about in the pre-screen. And then the underground counties have a different abatement schedule because the impacts are a little bit different. But and people have agreed that it's a fair approach.
Wait a second. Let's just stop and hold on a second. I don't know how you feel that $29 million is a fair offer. That's not even a third of the total taxes we'd be looking at. I don't have any idea of what the potential services that we're supposedly saving are. Okay, so you're not going to get a quick resolution here. I'm telling you that right now. Do you have any commitments in writing from any other IDA?
Yes.
Who are they?
Essex IDA, Washington IDA, Saratoga, Schenectady, Green is advancing. We have different IDAs in different stages, and I'd have to give you some are authorized.
Okay, but no, I'm not saying who you are in different stages. Do you have a commitment to a pilot? Do you have 50% of the 13 IDAs you're talking about? Because I don't care what they do in Saratoga. That has nothing to do with Ulster County.
I understand that.
And your $29 million doesn't cut it.
Mm-mm.
Your numbers are way, way, way out there. It's not going to work no matter how you explain it. I'm telling you that right now. This board will not get behind that. So, I think, and I apologize if anyone thinks I'm speaking for them. I'm not. I'm speaking as a member in the chair. I certainly wouldn't get behind that number. So what your idea of fair is and my idea of fair is are clearly miles and miles apart.
Yeah, and I feel it's a little presumptuous to assume, the project's gonna go through on your cost-based analysis at these numbers. I mean, you have to assume that there's gotta be some wiggle room. You're coming at us with this number and your numbers have to work on this number. What if that number doesn't work with us?
I don't know how you arrive at that number, but hey, Rose had a question. She's had her hand up for a while. Go ahead, Rose.
It's actually right in line with what we're talking about, so it's perfect timing. I was going to ask Todd if you would be able to send us copies of what has, I guess, sort of like two piles, right? One on what was agreed upon preliminarily by the other IDAs, and also what you're asking from the other IDAs, so that we can compare the percentages of abatements from them versus what we have here as
And
well.
what potential services are in these other IDAs.
Exactly.
The potential services in Saratoga County or Schenectady may be a lot different than it is in Ulster County.
Yeah, because I think we're
You can't make an
struggling.
educated decision unless we're taking a look at what the real savings are or the impact over time.
Right, I
So-
think that's the challenge, is that, it's hard to see the direct benefit to Ulster County.
And
Because
honestly, the only
everything's
people in
either upstate
Ulster
or
County
downstate.
that benefit are us, are the
Right.
fees this board would get.
Yeah, because everything seems to be upstate or downstate, and we're neither of those.
We
So can I
discussed
there were
this.
just a bunch of questions asked of me, and I just want to make sure that I get this because we want to follow up and be respectful of the process. So
Here's question one. How do you arrive at $29 million? And write a narrative telling me how that's fair. And the other question, or the other thing I'd like to see is, I'd like you to do a takeoff of what the potential expenses would have been over the 30 years and versus what they are and what we're saving. So what we'll do, I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll put it in writing and we'll send it to you. So that way nothing gets lost.
okay, that would be helpful.
I can do that.
And I think, Mr. Chairman, you mentioned potential services, and I just want to make sure I understand what you.
Well, when you talk about there's no children in school, there's no this, there's no that. So taking an 18-mile range, say there's 150 kids. Well, that's 150 we're not going to see. So what does it cost per student per year? Theoretically. I mean, I know it's a heavy lift, but you can take a ballpark number. Does it cost $5,000 a year for a student? Does it cost $8,000? Rose, you were going to say something?
No, sorry, I was stretching, but
Does it cost $8,000 a year for a student? I mean, if you're going to toss that out there as a benefit, that something that we're going to realize that there's no increased expenses for services, well, just give us a takeoff of it.
Also, I'd like to see exactly where that line is going in Ulster County, where it starts and where it ends.
we do have a map of it.
Oh, good.
Can you tell us, Rose, real quick?
Yeah, it goes, hold on, I wonder if I can move. Is it, let's see, I'm trying to think of the fastest way for me to do that. Give me 1 second. I also wanted to say, Diane and I this was one of the major concerns for us when we were doing the pre-screen, was there don't appear to be direct benefits to Ulster County. So on page 137, Todd did supply us with a list of like the benefits for the project, if that's helpful for anybody specifically.
Oh, here it is. Okay, I see it.
Mhm.
So it's basically going from the tip of Ulster County to it's going right past it, the entire.
Yeah,
The
it's
river.
right on the, I mean, it's in the water, right? So it's right on the edge of Dutchess County, and it goes through the taxing jurisdictions of Saugerties, for the towns at least, right? The town of Saugerties, the town of Ulster, the town of Esopus, and the city of Kingston.
Are we talking center of the river, or are we talking one way or the other? Because if it's Ulster County, it's center of the river, left.
It's,
whatever.
yeah, it's right on our side of the river because of where the channel is my understanding.
Enough said.
Yeah, and we have to do it in a deep enough area. Otherwise, the install vessel will just run aground. So we don't want that to happen.
And there's
Okay.
been a study, an environmental impact study for all the debris that's gonna be moved about in the water because of the jet digging the trench.
Yes, there has been at the state and the federal level. So it's studied significantly. There was an environmental assessment as part of our Article 7 permit, which is the all-encompassing state siting and environmental permit that we received back in April 2013. And then as part of the presidential permit that we received from the US Department of Energy, which that permit's required because we're bringing power across the border, that triggered the National Environmental Policy Act. And then an environmental impact statement was done on the project related to that.
So that you guys
And that's
basically have
about
a
5
green light.
inches thick.
So you basically have a green light to come through. You have your green light to come through.
Environmentally, you do.
Yeah, so I mean, they have all those permits. They're coming through regardless of, our feelings about the environment and stuff, So now I really think what it comes down to money. It comes about, they're coming through. They have the presidential permits, they have what they need, and they just need to come through our neighborhood. And for me, it's like, how much is that worth to you? And I think that's what it comes down to.
Did you all want to see that map? I found it here.
Yes. Yeah.
So you can see it's literally on the border of Ulster and Dutchess where it's coming through.
Yeah, from the top of Ulster to the bottom of Ulster, if it's on the
That's the length
river.
of the county.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, well,
And-
listen, we've given him a lot of tasks, I believe. I think it would be better suit everyone if Todd had the ability to get the information that we're gonna, the requests that we're gonna send him and then come back to us. Because I think he's kind of getting peppered a little bit here.
Okay.
Look, hey, it's
I had
just
no
the
hair
way
when I
it is. I
started this
mean,
job, so that's okay. I'm not
we had a
losing
guy
any hair.
one time say that he didn't need the pilot, and we said, then don't take it, kind of deal. So we like to stay on top of this. And again, I just put it out there before. I mean, the IDA gets a benefit on this, but it's got to reflect a total countywide. So we'll get together, we'll put together stuff, we'll stay in contact with you. Rose can get back to you and look, we'd like to have any documentation that you may or may not have or can get communications from other IDAs. It would save us a lot of trouble.
Yeah, and we can do that. There's what's public. We can give you all, and to the extent that there's not, we can talk through things and where we are. We've obviously got to be sensitive to those discussions as well.
Is everybody good with that? All the board members? Rick, you had a question first?
Yeah, if you don't mind, Chair. It's somewhat tongue in cheek. So Todd/Joe, if we say no pilot, I assume you'll be paying this 90 million.
Yeah.
Maybe.
That's it.
We'll see.
Maybe. Why? You gonna sue us?
No, because if that causes all of our other IDAs to fall apart, or we can't get to an agreement, then.
Well, then I guess you better find a more
Then I
fair
think-
number then, huh?
Then I think you got to sharpen your pencil.
Well, send along your questions and we'll
We
address
will.
those, and we'll take things step by step.
Okay.
Thank you
Okay.
for your time, and if it benefits you to stay and continue, that's fine, but I think it's probably better to wait on our missive back to you and then go from there. If that's okay with you.
That's fine. It's
Okay.
fine. I will drop off. Thank you all for your time and your diligence, and we look forward to eventually being a very good partner with Ulster County.
Good
As I've
stuff.
said that to all the other IDAs, and we've been through these discussions before, and we'll try to get it to a.
You want to join us for group therapy? You can. We have group
What's that?
therapy every now and then.
What's that?
I said we have group therapy now and then if you want to join. All right. Thank you very much,
Okay.
sir.
Thank you so much, everybody.
Okay.
Thanks, Todd. Thank you.
I need a motion to adjourn from this meeting. If I get that, then we'll take 5 minutes if everybody would like before the
Motion to adjourn.
CRC.
I'll
Had a
second.
motion, Faye?
I second it. Diane.
Okay.
Motion.
Those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Carried. Okay, so let's say we adjourned at 11:05 and we'll be back at 11:10, 11:15, something like that. All right, good stuff.